I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Oconee County Planning Commission, this March 18th at 6 p.m. Our first order of business is invocation by our council chaplain. Since he is absent, Ms. Lyles, would you please?
If you want to pray with us. Dear Lord, we come to you today and we just thank you for this opportunity to come together and plan things for our county, Lord, that we would watch out for each other, that we'd be a good community to each other, Lord. We just ask that you let us conduct this meeting in a manner that would be pleasing to you. We just ask that you be with us all as we travel home today and get us there safely. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Mike, would you lead us in the flag, please?
Yes.
I'll stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, sir. Okay. We don't have any minutes from, well, we got minutes from the 2/21/2019 meeting. We'll go ahead and get a motion to approve those.
Can I just,
So move.
one correction, I'm sorry. Under the I-85 overlay revision, paragraph 7, Ms. Lyles recommended that the Tyler Swain. I'm sure Tyler would appreciate being known as the Tyler Swain, but. So, you'll just take that out.
Yes, ma'am.
And then also Mr. Pearson is Mr. Pearson and not Mr. Pierce
That's right.
in paragraph 11.
Gotcha.
And I need a second. Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we're going to move into the public comment, non-agenda items. Mary, pronounce that. That's it?
Yes.
You can.
And before she makes her public comment, can we find out by raise of hands if it was the cookies that brought all the people in, or did a bus break down out in the parking lot?
Hey, I'm Mary Ann Grabarczyk, and I'm an old Oconee gal, and I am real interested in volunteering with you guys to help with the survey. And I spoke with Adam and Jim a couple of weeks ago, and I think y'all ought to make this thing fun. Tie it in with the Think Oconee campaign. Try to get volunteers from civic groups, Chamber of Commerce, maybe even you guys, to get out on events on Ramcat and get surveys from people. Speaking with Adam, I know what you've done with the journal. I just don't know if that would get a good cross section, because those things get thrown away. I mean, I see people in my neighborhood, anything tossed out in the driveway goes in the trash can. But anyway, that's just, I've got something wrote up. I'd be glad to make copies and give y'all a copy of it. But it is something I'm interested in doing.
Okay.
So,
You referring to the comprehension plan?
yes.
Just give Adam a copy of what you've got, and he can get it out to all of us. And we
Okay.
can look at it.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to me.
No problem, Adam. Okay, item number 6 on the agenda is the letter to county council regarding the transportation, the issues in the Bounty Land, the development out there. We've got a letter in the back. Can I get a motion to approve sending it to county council?
Did we get any of these studies and stuff that we asked for?
I don't believe they've been completed at the moment in time, but I haven't double checked since last week.
According to the administrator, the studies we were talking about before, do not include the intersections. They only include the egress and ingress, that area, and then they go back down, if I'm not mistaken, the frontage road behind the development. It doesn't have anything to do with those two intersections. That's the worst.
I just feel like before we ask the county for funds, we need to see what has been done. Instead of just thinking that it doesn't involve that before we spend any more money or ask to spend any money, we need to see what it actually does entail.
I'm with Ms. Laus on that.
Adam, have we talked to, did you say you had or had not talked to?
I had not. But I do believe the transportation studies that the developer is doing and the city of Seneca is going to ground truth that and check it out. I don't believe they incorporate the Bounty Land or the Kiwi School Road and Blue Ridge intersection. I don't believe so. They could, but I don't think so.
Is there a way to find out fairly quickly?
Y'all don't mind me being on my phone. I'll work on it. Let me see what I can do.
I know the administrator called the administrator in Seneca, and nothing has been completed or anything, and it did not include, at that time, and that was about a week ago, it did not include those intersections. It was everything else.
If it doesn't include those intersections, that's what need to be addressed.
And I think if, Mr. Pearson, if you talk to the administrator, if you could get them to give all of us that information instead of just giving it to you, if they could put it in writing, it would help tremendously to get that information to us instead of just going by word of mouth from this person to that person.
Well, this letter is not demanding anything. It's just asking. It's just letting the council know that we are concerned with that, the traffic that potentially could be dangerous to the residents in that area when this development is approved and finished, that it could be safety hazards to the Tribble Center, the schools out there, and these intersections are already congested starting at about this time of the year with all the traffic going in and out of South Cove. But it's backed up during the winter times as well, from trying to get back out on 28 with the traffic we have now, and with this development, it's going to be even more congested. And this is just asking them to look into it. It's not demanding that they do anything, just
But
letting
it's
them know
asking
that our
for
concern.
funds before we.
But they have to
funds.
approve that. We can ask them for $1 million, and if they say no, then it's not done. This is just letting them know that we would like something done in that area for safety for our residents in that area.
I
And-
totally agree that could be an issue there, but I just think we should have all of our ducks in a row before we ask for money from the taxpayers. And we should not be double dipping into something that's already being done by the city of Seneca. We need to make sure they're not doing that study before we ask for funds to do the same study.
Well, if they're already doing the study, the council wouldn't even do it anyway. I mean,
I'll propose a simple solution by simply ask that we would like for council to provide funds for a traffic study of these two intersections if those sections are not included in the current studies being done by the developer in the city of Seneca. So that we can go ahead and get this before the council so they can be thinking about it, looking at possible ways to pay for it. Whatever it, asking, because it could be that if they inquire enough, the city of Seneca will go, maybe we should go ahead and expand ours. If they're interested. I don't know how far the city of Seneca limits go, but if you just change that letter of hair and add a condition in there, we could go ahead and let council know that we're concerned. And
I do like that idea, because I think it needs to get on the public record as quickly as we can get it there so that other people can start becoming aware of it. So whatever change we need to make, because I also agree that just asking for funds without finding out that for sure.
I'm on board as long as somebody double checks and makes sure that we're not duplicating a study. I'm fine with it, as long as that's done first.
I believe the if language that Mrs. McPhail proposed kind of backstops that.
Okay.
I believe so. And as soon as I hear something from Ed Halbig at the City of Seneca, I'll let you all know. And just because we normally don't have this many people in the audience, I think we're probably having a conversation that nobody here, maybe we can just explain real quick what we're talking about.
There is a proposed development at the old Covidian property. They've got right now they're wanting the egress and ingress coming off, going on to South Cove Road. The intersection at South Cove and Kiwi School Road is one of our concerns with the traffic. This development can cause or can add up to 24 trips a day in and out of the subdivision to those particular, that intersection, plus the one down at 28 there at Bountyland. And we're concerned with the increased traffic, with the safety of the residents in that area, because South Cove Road is not a road that can be done a whole lot to. The state only has ditch to ditch egress or right of way, or what do you want to call it there. So a lot of work can't be done on that road, but you start adding all this extra traffic, and especially during the summer months when all the camping and the fishing and with either the residents that's down there now, it will get to be a nightmare, or can be. It's no guarantee that anything will happen, but we're just concerned about those two intersections, trying to make it a lot safer and asking the county to look into the problem and maybe do something about it.
You may also want to mention that while it is in the county, it is out of our jurisdiction because it's technically in the City of Seneca's planning department's hands. So that subdivision was planned and approved through the City of Seneca. And while we have no jurisdiction as to the ingress and egress of that subdivision, we take over at the point of concern of those intersections because they're already overburdened. And so it was the intent of this council to put on public record that while we can't talk about the subdivision being for or against or any control otherwise, we can talk about that it's a concern to the residents as to those intersections. The hope being that if council also expresses concern, that the DOT will get involved in looking at those already overtaxed intersections and looking at that extra 2,400 trip traffic when that subdivision comes in, and what do we need to do about it ahead of time? So.
Right, and that's what we're discussing now. So, Adam, can you make the changes in the letter?
Yes, sir.
Do we go ahead and with the changes approve it, or do you want to wait till you do the changes and approve it at that time?
You can do it just like you do the minutes, just approve it with those changes if that's how you all see fit, with the edits that Mrs. McPhail.
Okay, I need a motion to approve with changes.
I'll make a motion to approve the letter with Gwen's changes.
Need a second? Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. So now, Adam, as soon as you get the changes. Okay, our next item is the Highway 123 corridor study presentation by Alta Planning and Design. We have several people that want to speak, so we will let them speak first, and then we'll go into the, turn it over to Alta and let them do their presentation. All right, I've got, is that Danielle Morris? Or Daniel?
There's a Daryl Morris.
That may be it. Daryl Morris?
Yes, sir, but I'm not prepared for presentation. We're just coming listening to the corridor down 123.
Okay, so you don't want to, you don't need to speak?
No, sir.
Okay.
Well, the majority of them are like that. Ask if anybody
DeVoe?
wants to speak.
We like to, if you'll step up, do me a favor and step up to mic, because we can get it.
On this thing, the DOT has started regulating curb cuts and driveways in the county, and I've got a plan to do that. They are doing that on 123. I have talked to them about some driveways and some property I own, a couple of tracks on 123. And I think this thing needs to be coordinated with them rather than anybody else, because we don't need the DOT telling us one thing and then the county telling us another. And it seems like every time we turn around, some agency's trying to regulate our property. And it's got to the point that you have to stay on top of things and stay busy trying to protect your property from all these regulations. And I think it, with the DOT regulating it, y'all just need to coordinate with them what's going on instead of having two different plans to do something on 123. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Nathan Farah?
Here to listen, thank you.
Okay. Eric McCullen? Okay. Ms. Baker?
I'm here to listen.
And this is all three of y'all, so I know but all three of y'all are here for the same reason, so. All right, well, we'll just go into Alta's presentation. Adam, do you want us to come down front now, or you want us to stay up here?
Actually, for the moment, through the presentation portion, if you all wouldn't mind staying up there, that way it's a little easier to communicate the project. And then at a certain point, Ms. Maines will call you all down, I believe.
Okay. Turn it over to you, ma'am.
All right, can you all hear me okay? It's good? Great. Well, thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm so excited to talk to you about this project. My name is Kat Maines. I'm with a firm called Alta Planning and Design out of Atlanta, Georgia, here with some other colleagues for the next couple of days to work on this project and try to talk to as many people as we can and get your thoughts on the corridor. So we're excited to be here. Thank you all for having us. So I'm going to start with a quote to kind of tell you about the spirit of why we're here. So leading innovation is not about getting people to follow you into the future. It's about getting people to co-create it with you. So I mentioned we're here from out of Atlanta and Charlotte today. We're here because we want to create this plan, do this study in Oconee County. We don't want to do it from Atlanta and from Charlotte. So we're here to co-create with you all. And after the presentation, we're going to cluster around some maps and really brainstorm and come up with some ideas. So I hope you'll all join me in that. So our corridor that we're looking at is Highway 123. The extents of our study go from the eastern city limits of Seneca to the eastern limits of the county itself. It's about 4.5 miles. Pretty consistent road, 2 lanes in each direction. We're seeing more development cropping up. And some of the opportunities that we've seen out there so far is that there's some growth happening out there. We saw it when we got out there. We've also heard about a lot of the plans that have been going on from the people that we've talked to so far. This map here shows the recently closed permits, construction permits for these sites. So you can see work that's been completed recently and then currently open permits. So starting to see some kind of clusters of change potentially happening in the eastern end of the corridor and some kind of sprinkled throughout the corridor in the other sections as well. Another big opportunity we see is that Highway 123 is the entry point for so many people coming into Oconee County. It's also the entry point for Seneca coming into the western end of the area that we're studying, and it's the entryway for Clemson coming into if you're heading out of Oconee County. So there's all these different groups and different jurisdictions that are interested in kind of creating a sense of place around this corridor. We've also noticed there's some utility easements out around this area, areas that could potentially be made available for public use in some capacity. Another opportunity is that there's a lot of right-of-way. A lot of times when we go into these communities where they've built out all of the land that they have available to them, and Oconee County has lots of extra right-of-way on either side of the road right now, so there's an opportunity there. And finally, something that jumped out to us as we were driving along the site this morning was that there's a lot of healthy food options relative to the rest of the county. You have the new Aldi that went in at Hartwell Village. There's the Food Lion here in the photo, and then the Ingles and the forthcoming Publix that are closer towards the western end of the corridor we're looking at. So making sure that people have access to these grocery stores and the convenience that they bring into your life. Now, there's also some constraints we noticed while we were out there today. The first one that we noticed is there's a lack of travel options other than vehicle. So in your cross-section, you know, the vehicles are served pretty well, but there's also other modes out there. We know there's bus service, for example, that people might be trying to access, but not necessarily dedicated infrastructure for that. And safety is another issue that's come up. We know that it's one of the high crash corridors within the county, and lots of different theories on why, but overall knowing that there have been a handful of fatalities and many more collisions beyond that over the past 5 years of data that we've looked at. And finally, this kind of goes hand in hand with your wide right-of-way. A lot of it might not actually be as easy to develop as we make it look in that cross-section. You have a lot of environmental constraints, some topographic constraints that might make it a little bit tricky to develop something along that corridor, whatever it may be. And game day traffic. This is another thing we have not experienced today, but we have heard that on game days and when Clemson is in session in general, that it's much more congested than it is otherwise. And the railroad that parallels that. It does not parallel the route for the entire section of the corridor, but where it does, it makes it really tricky to do any new access points to the north side of the corridor, and it makes those existing access points a little bit more complicated and a little bit more sensitive in terms of safety issues. So we understand that you all have been doing a lot of planning and that a lot of that has included this road. So looking at a couple of those plans, this is from the last round of the comprehensive plan for Oconee County, and just highlighting with this red box, highlighting our study area, showing that even when this plan was done, there was some potential for this corridor to become a growth area. There's 5 main transportation goals in the 2010 comprehensive plan. Highlighting here the ones that we think we have the most potential to affect with this study. So working to upgrade the road system in a manner that provides safe and efficient routes throughout the county while limiting the negative impacts of sensitive areas. Supporting the expansion of mass transit in Oconee County by potentially supporting the bus service that already runs along that corridor. And then number 5, encouraging the expansion of bicycle and pedestrian routes in areas that are appropriate if this corridor is deemed to be one of those appropriate areas. I'll note that number 3 could potentially have some relation to, we know that there is Amtrak served on that railroad corridor. Not likely something we're going to get into in super high detail in this study, but just noting that there is potential for that corridor to have a relation to this goal of high-speed rail in the region. So we know there's also a comprehensive plan update going on. It's all in draft form, but we pulled a couple of the maps from the population component of that plan. This one shows the population change by census tract over 2000 to 2010, highlighting that the Highway 123 corridor has seen some of the higher growth in the county. And then at the same time, these two maps, the one on the left is showing you median household income by census tract. The one on the right shows you minority population by census tract, showing that this is a lower income area relative to the rest of the county and higher minority rates in population than the rest of the county. So trying to look at it through an equity lens as well. We've also seen some of the data around the safety issue, as I alluded to earlier in the presentation. This map shows the traffic fatalities in the county from 2012 to 2017, highlighting there's, we think, about 4 on this map, just from visually counting, and that the 123 corridor overall is one of the top 15 roadways for collisions in the county. So the fact that it appears on that list shows that it needs safety definitely needs some attention for this corridor. This is the heat map showing overall both fatalities and just overall collisions for the corridor. So again, it jumps out as one of the priority areas. We also know there's been this sort of image and branding study that's been done in the past to try to create kind of a coordinated branding strategy for the county overall. So there's opportunity to potentially use some of the recommendations in here, and especially since it is one of your entry points into the county, to try to think about what that means in relation to the Destination Oconee plan. So I'm going to go through a little bit about our design process, why we're here, what we're going to be doing while we're here, and then we can start talking about some maps after that. So we started this project about a month ago, started collecting some data and doing some existing conditions analysis, started coordinating with some of our stakeholders, and now in March we're here doing this visit. And then over the next 6 weeks, basically, we will be wrapping up any recommendations that come out of this and compiling all of it into a report that the county can adopt, potentially. For the next 3 days, we're here, March 18th, 6 p.m., here we are at the council chambers. Tomorrow and Wednesday, both days, we'll be doing open design studio hours from 10 a.m. to noon, when anyone is welcome to come in and have more one-on-one informal conversations about the corridor, kind of check in on progress about what's been developed, and potentially share thoughts, influence those ideas so that we have the input moving forward. Also tomorrow we have a presentation to County Council at 6 p.m. here in this room. And finally on Wednesday we'll be doing a design pinup, which will also be an informal presentation and open house to show everything that's been developed over the past, over the next 2 days, I should say. So this morning we went out, we did some field work, we drove, did a little bit of walking along the corridor just to see how it feels to be out there, how safe it feels, what does it feel like to walk around, what's the development like. And then tomorrow and Wednesday we're going to be doing a lot of this, a lot of looking at maps and coming up with some recommendations and some graphics that try to make it clear and synthesize everything that we have heard from our stakeholders and the public. So with that, we're going to transition to do a map exercise, and I'm going to give you a brief overview of what it will entail, and then you can all come up here. So we're going to do a SWOT analysis, which focuses on strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So So we're going to go through each of those 4 items. What are the strengths of the corridors? What are the things you think are working really well out there today? What are the things that you want to hang on to? And then what are the weaknesses? What are the things that you would like to change in the future? And then what are the specific opportunities? So what are the assets that are out there today that you think have a potential to really make the corridor better? And what are the specific threats? So conversely, what are the things that you're not quite sure about might come in, could adversely affect the future of the corridor? So with that, I'll ask you all to come down. We're going to cluster around, and you're all welcome. We're going to cluster around this map here, this table over on this side, and we're going to go through each of those 4 items, just kind of pointing them out on the map and listing the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats as you see them. So don't be shy. Come on
I
up.
want to encourage you to stay and do this part because this is the part that's going to make a difference. If you're a property owner, this is where you need to have your input.
If you need this, you may want to.
Okay. All right, just to ground everybody that's over here at this table, we went through this similar exercise with our steering committee, which included SCDOT, Clemson Area Transit, City of Clemson, who else, Adam? Had some City of Seneca.
Then we had a few other stakeholders as well.
And people from Oconee County as well as part of it. So we went through a similar exercise, and that's what's documented over at this table. So if you want to take a look at what they did, no cheating because we want fresh ideas over here. So, but anyway, so Kat, you want to start with the first topic and get some ideas of what people think are strengths, what you like about the corridor, what absolutely do not change this.
Yeah, and we're going to keep this process a little informal, so if you want to shout out your idea, go for it. If you want to raise your hand, that's cool too. But anything you see as a major strength, it could be something that you see over here, it could be something that we presented in the presentation, or it's something completely different, which is what I hope for, because I hope you all have much better ideas than you do.
One final thing before we get started. Speaking of starting, we really have not started. I mean, today was the kickoff. We had our first look at the corridor, and we're now starting to think about potential design solutions. What we did this afternoon and what you're doing tonight are laying the groundwork for where you're telling us where we need to focus. And then if you want to tomorrow during the open studio 10 to noon, feel free to drop back by. And then, certainly you can see what we've done to that point tomorrow evening, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll start with
Bike lanes down the middle.
anyone have a strength they want to throw out there?
So the Green Crescent Trail that
Okay.
Clemson is doing, we tie into it off of, well, Oak 94 and tie into it, but it's only 4.5 miles. some roll, but.
Oh, okay, yes.
People slow down to turn and.
Break it up, man. This is the thing.
Watch over State Highway, one of the biggest problems, there's no road courtesy anymore.
Other places up there where we had subdivision over there were. Yeah, it's very difficult to get in or out of there.
Sure, gotcha.
Well, with roads,
Well, there are communities that have a little bit more planned roads than we have. Give a little on that side. I know that you have a lot of property, but, you know.
think about it is, they changed this game plan, and that's property to you, until you got.
Probably more recreational indoor students.
And that's
I guess.
A lot of times I feel like, talking about the zoning, people.
So are we on weaknesses or strengths?
Can,
Even though you showed some good challenges as far as whatever that was. You got enough to really widen this road? Yeah, well, you can, and I hope they come to a place.
It's plenty of right of way. Yep.
Yeah, about 260 from our date.
When the state highway buys property now, or road, when they did this, they get enough right of way, so if they have to come back and make any changes, they don't have to pay a big price.
Other strengths?
4 lanes are all.
Green.
concrete building.
It needs to stay that way.
Yeah.
Boulevard is wide enough to beautify,
That's what we need to do.
bike path, anything you wanted in it. It's really wide open.
It needs to stay very wide.
Okay. And what you mentioned before, what do you like about that?
It is something that does allow traffic to get through town.
Okay.
Get in the turn lane to get into the right lane. And I have followed people all the way to Greenville, and they'll stay in that left lane.
I think the biggest problem is people going 65 to 70 miles an hour. They have the last lot. So that's a strength. They're going.
When I was coming up here a while ago, there was a vehicle had a state tag, and he passed me, and I was doing around 50 and 45 zones. He passed me.
Yeah, we have a lot of that. We have a lot of left-hand people, and that's a reaction sometimes of the demographic in the county where you gotta make a left-hand turn 5 miles ahead, people go ahead and get in the left lane, it's ridiculous, but it may be because they're concerned about making them lane changes. Going here in Greenville, if you tried to ride in the right lane on part of that highway, it's so, the wheel ruts are so bad, you got a 30-year neglect of our roads, but, and people riding the left lane just have smooth travel.
I think one more strength might be that while we are intersection, because there's not a lot of development left to it, that we do still have some opportunity to catch it before it's an easement, for example.
Yeah, and that's my big worry is easement.
Is wherever we catch it before it's an easement.
Right. Well, 'cause that's out of Clemson.
Or
Yeah.
Clemson. Gosh, it can take you 30 minutes to get from one side of Clemson to the other.
Well, Clemson probably loses a lot of this growth. Every time they win the national championship, they play growth.
The development we got right along through here, now at rush hour, traffic backs up from Clemson all the way to the shopping center. Well, and beyond.
Or is that the road closure of 903 that's shutting more traffic?
It's the afternoon
Yeah.
traffic, and if you have any issue whatsoever between Hartwell Village or between Harts Cove and the bridge, if there's any issue right there, it's gonna be backed up past Food Line. Just like last week, they had the water main break down at the intersection of College Avenue and 123 that had traffic backed up beyond Food Line.
Well, another problem you got over around there as far as getting around is the lakes. Causes a problem of being able to reroute anything.
All right, so I'm just gonna get back our list of strengths. We have divided highway, large right-of-way for development, 4 lanes, the median is wide, enough remaining development area for opportunity. Are there other things, it could be just one specific spot along the corridor that you really like, or somewhere you like to go?
And the change they made at Clemson, going into Clemson, where they unified the turns instead of you've got every which way road, that's a definite improvement.
Okay, that's great.
At Hartwell Village, on the bad side of Hartwell Village.
Other strengths? Hesitant to jump to weaknesses, I know.
We've already got a few, so let's go there. Let's go there.
All right, let's jump in. What's not working for you?
Lighting. And I wonder how many of the accidents and fatalities are at night. To break it down. That way, but a large section, there are very few vehicles.
Okay. And that's the whole corridor, am I remembering correctly?
This area is probably where most of the business here and traffic, heavy trucks. 1,000%. Sit at this red light, and every day there's about 2 or 3 people that run. They never look. Well, so now you sit there. Yeah, Wells Highway. Every week there's an accident there. It's new Century construction. Corner of Wells and Davis Mill.
Having any bus stops in that 4.5 bus stopping in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Coming right up on them and trying to go around or either run somebody out of the road or run into the back of the bus. I don't know that that's happened, but
We need van stops and bus stops. They don't have that many people on the bus, and it takes up so much of the highway. They do about 3 or 4 on the bus.
they're just stopping in the middle of the road or in on the road there and it's blocking everything up.
And eventually, somewhere near the Hartwell Village, there's gonna have to be a substation for the sheriff's department, maybe an ambulance. I have heard people with the sheriff's department talk about the response time get down there.
So weaknesses, you know,
Lack of
access,
emergency
lack of
response.
emergency
Right.
response.
Edge of the county.
Yeah.
Exactly, there's not enough left turn lanes.
Or the vet, I think I'd probably go to where the veterinarian. Some of them, even on right-hand turns, if you don't have, it's just like with the buses, if you don't have a turn lane, you're slowing way down, right, to turn right into like JC Sports or the vet or any of those places.
As far as weakness or opportunity, it could be one of either. One of the problems with Easley is curb cuts. There can be businesses with 2 or 3 curb cuts. Every 20 feet, there's another exit or entrance that you don't know of. Now, we don't have control of Seneca, part of 123, but you can see there, more than half of the businesses have 2 entrances and exits. It's not an entrance or an exit, it's both, and they can, so you're stopping and going, and that's what's the problem with traffic in Easley. Now, an opportunity might be that while we don't have something here, to better plan for the future as far as how curb cutting works here.
Well, I will tell you, one of the best things that they did on 123 was making that right turn lane going into, Greenfield.
Yeah,
Right. Right there at the light at Food Line.
Exit lane.
That is one of the best things that they ever did, and if they would have more of those along the whole corridor, it would make it a whole lot better.
and that's the right turn when you're headed toward Clemson.
Yep.
Instead of actually widening the whole road, just almost go down through there with repeated right turns.
I think you need to work with the property owner and stuff too, instead of just come up with all these ideas and try to, you know, they've got an investment, they bought it, and they pay for it, they pay taxes on it. And they have a vested interest. A lot of times people want to, you know, implement stuff and don't consider the fact that, you know.
Well, I don't think anybody said anybody's property's gonna be taken from this.
Well, they got plenty of right of way.
Whenever you take right away, you get.
You got right of way, you can put a turn lane.
Ma'am,
If you got right of way, can you put a turn lane without impacting your property? Or are you talking about just development that would impact your property in a different way than what you were
well,
wanting
you
to
know,
do?
access to your property and your development.
So some things that can be done to actually enhance the value of your property.
And fortunately, the road's for everybody, not just that property.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of people got these ideas, they wanna do something at somebody else's expense, and not consider the other.
Individual businesses or properties can be linked with a service road or a frontage road, so you don't have so very many?
Absolutely, and there's an example of that that's built recently. It's here, this road, I believe, built to connect. There was one,
That's
right.
where the new dentist office.
Yes.
I do.
Where a frontage road was built in advance of the development going on.
Certainly, we can do that.
Something else you have no control over whatsoever, but when you come out of the Union Station Drive at a certain time of year, looking back towards Seneca, if the sun is right there, you cannot see it. It's World War II fighter pilots coming out of the sun.
We had to see some sunshine lately.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Okay, he had the same concern I had about billboards.
Okay. Okay. All right, no worries.
Now, they had talked about what about they wanted to put underpass on the railroad there, go that new development near Hart Bailey.
Well, you got the, it's because you've only got one entrance. You've got one access point. They are gonna be putting traffic light there at some point before August. But still, even at that though, that is the only access point. Harts Cove has 560 beds in it. The new one, Epic, has 998 beds that are being built.
Is that the one behind Harts Cove on
Yeah,
the lake?
Epic is the brand new one that they're building right now. That's 1,600 beds, 1,600 potential residents that you've got using one access point for one traffic light. And the railroad track. And the railroad track.
They can't get in, so that's back out.
Yeah, I worked at Jacob's Chuck and several
bad back
times the
then.
train break down. Yeah, you were stuck on one side of the other.
Well, no, we've got emergency access that stays locked off unless that access road is blocked. Corinth Shiloh Fire Department has access to it. They used to keep it unlocked, but then some of the residents had started using it, so they locked it. But there is an emergency access from the backside.
Is there a way, since this is a road, is there a way to get across?
Have to go under the railroad track.
This is called backup because they took this out.
Yeah,
That's the stupidest thing they ever
that
did.
doesn't exist anymore.
It actually works pretty smoothly.
This should have never been taken out. That should have been left. Because traffic could just roll on and off, roll on off, roll on off. No, now they make it go all the way down to red lights and make it stop because this has got a turn. Stop. I've seen traffic back up to this road, back over to the road. Because they don't have a way to go on.
I drive that every morning. We don't have any problems in that area. Where we have our problem, if you don't clear Angels light up there before 7:15 in the morning, then you have problems until you get down here to 93. Those two lanes, there's two lanes. When you turn off there, those two lanes keep moving because it continues into the two lanes that's on 93.
Don't worry about stopping, it's just a straight roll off. Now, give me an understanding, they wanted to put a red light here. Going back.
There is a red
Just
light.
now, yeah, going back. And the reason they took it out, because they didn't want the fast traffic. All they've done, the same thing they did over at Pickens County line, was put a flashing light when this light's here and change, so people just know to slow down. It worked over there on 123, going out of the state line, I mean, the county line, but here, got everybody backing up in the damn red. That's something else down here.
There are other ways of getting around besides cars. I mean, the infill with people living closer to the university, how about more pedestrian or bicycle-friendly opportunities for people to travel around?
Yes, you can. Absolutely. Water taxi. It was on the other side of the bridge.
Right.
Yeah, it would start on the other side of the bridge.
But yeah, bypass what's legally an option, Clemson already had that studied, and because of Clemson University owning so much of the land, and then you got the railroad on the other side, there's not a real good bypass option. And the guy from Clemson was saying that the best option would be an elevated lane, that is just like a bypass lane going over Clemson, but that you're gonna have a lot of resistance with that, with the people in Clemson, so.
And where would that overpass be?
It would go from the bridge over 123. It's about the only option there. It's limited because you've got so many bridges coming out of Oklahoma County. So we're limited on what we can do, what our options are. We're trying to be a good neighbor to Clemson and coordinate with them so that, hopefully they'll do the same with us in the future. And this whole thing will get better.
This is one of the big idea kind of things, but, Shiloh Road is curvy as all get out, but it basically runs parallel to 123. Old Clemson Highway also runs parallel, but it does rejoin 123 before we cross the lake. So Shiloh Road provides, with connecting up to some other roads, a way to get around Clemson, and a lot of people do that, but long-term as the county grows, that's not the best road in the world to bypass people to. So we're gonna be really forward thinking. We need to be thinking about these other places that already have bridges and they already have the, Cherry Road, where the plant used to be now, Clemson Student Housing, it's torn up like crazy. It's, really bad, but.
We have that situation again when we have that horrible bridge at the line.
Yeah.
We can't control those bridges at our county line. We can try to work with, our neighboring counties, but once we cross that lake, we don't have a whole lot of options.
That bridge on Cherry Road is in Oconee County.
Yes, it is.
The whole bridge.
The whole bridge, the county line is not until 700 yards over.
You're hitting on something.
I think Shiloh and, Clemson Highway needs to be worked on, because people do use that, they're gonna have more pressure
At
regardless.
some point, can you make those roads more attractive for certain kind of commuters without, you've got people that live there and everything, but, to take pressure off of them, particularly in the city.
Cam, but the thing about that, you've got so many residents driveways.
Looking at the train truck, we speeded up to the third floor, distance of third floor.
Are there any other student housing solutions on our side?
Clemson does own a huge block of here, that you want, what is it, that as the does, they might stop. So we just don't have, that teacher there, that's the one.
Well, the university's on spring break. Y'all aren't gonna get the picture of what it's like.
They actually did mention
Morning, morning.
that this, when the new census comes out, will be considered an urban.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about have some kind of policy or something where you try to get the developers to do it for development. I like a driveway after I didn't add a acceleration lane.
Real estate issue, because we're coming down the hill, so people get in Dodge dealership out there, and they're running on, they're 69 to 70 mile an hour, and then someone trying to turn straight, they're running on the back end. It's just a shock off.
Yeah, and that's right here, you said?
There's actually a water complex right across the street, across the street.
So, he's obviously interested in it. They have some other just data other than just a number. He may have some other information that could be that might be helpful. I mean, we could always contact him later, but if he's here later. Okay.
Pretty much everything that y'all brought up, we brought up too, so hopefully we'll get somewhere with that. We just have it at least in the first.
Kat, in the interest of moving things, because we're already getting into some of the big ideas, and I want to make sure that we capture that. But what have we not specifically asked yet?
Yeah, well, let's move to
Opportunities?
opportunities, I think.
Okay.
We've got strengths and weaknesses, and I thank you, Chloe, for noting them out of turn. We have, so far on our list for opportunities, we have median wide enough for some beautification or some more intentional landscaping, planning the curb cuts and limiting the driveways, turn lanes, like the one at Food Lion, and pedestrian and bike opportunities for travel. So let's expand that list. What else?
Clean up bus stops, but they aren't county bus systems. You stand on the side of the road, even this 4-lane road, wait, they will stop for you no matter where.
No, sir. I just do the
That's kind of complicated to change too, because you don't have to walk a mile either, but.
Cat brought that up, they were here too, and they have to stop, because there's not bus stops, and they can't put bus
So you
stops
mean like,
unless they're in a walk
Seafront
path up through there.
So yeah, that would be a really good thing. Is like
And if it's
we've
only
thought of
places
things.
for them to pull over and there's not a way for people to safely get to that bus stop, then that could have a liability on them. So, hopefully we can have a big,
Community
long.
event. It's not about one person. So that's what we get together. And whatever comes out of this.
I mentioned this earlier.
It'll go from planning commission to planning commission. When it goes to council, it gives you all items 2, 4, and 5 goes to be funded. At that point, SCDOs, what do we got? National Council of Governments, what do we got? We go look for grants for traffic safety, rural stuff, and kind of look at it that way.
We're talking about Highway 59 coming into our county from Atlanta. We want those people to come and spend money, and they come to county, it should look great when they enter from any direction.
Drive the process.
Is that your email?
Yes, sir.
Our phrase it long hair, not the.
Nebraska Fair.
Nebraska Fair. And they're, song or whatever, and also, that's the number one thing. We've got enough people to do that.
From SCDOT, yeah, that's probably, generally speaking, that's the thing. But if we have either economies of scale, we say, okay, well,
It's got all kinds of
doesn't
positives,
cost
plus
us,
the
then
pollinator. So that's what.
then either we look at it from a dozen businesses or entities getting together and say, okay, how can we make this cheapest? Or come together and say, okay, maybe we can find creative financing.
Well,
Whether it's tax incentive financing, FEMA or something like that, that we can, that's definitely a good idea. That's why we're doing this study, so we kind of exactly. Please don't. So we're doing this tomorrow and Wednesday as well, 10 to 9. And if you want to come in, there'll probably be less people. If you want to kind of get specific on certain things, or you can just email me and I can have it incorporated. But if you are, tomorrow, I think if one of you are available, 10 to noon, or it's a drop-in, so anytime from 10 to noon or thereafter. And then, are you on our media blast list? I send out an email every 2 weeks for these meetings. Are you all, I send it to you? Do you get an email from HM about the county agenda and all?
We need to hear from our other,
Well, but that would be so. Why don't you send me give me an email later on, shoot me an email, and ask me, like on the, every 2 weeks we have a
Thank you so much. I just got one question. Are they looking to expand the highway to bring in the east side?
Is that the corridor?
Yes, it's a quarter-mile buffer, so it's quarter-mile off the corridor. This is study, it denotes the study area.
Okay, so a quarter mile in Clemson. Personally, I just think a slow lane addition all the way from Seneca to Clemson. It'd be on both sides, and then extend the left-hand turn lane in the east. And have the buses go down the frontage road, or the frontage lane, where you want to go. Yes.
What you thought about the safety on this?
Well, I mean, the way that people are driving, removing stuff from the bottom, slowing things down. I mean, that's the biggest problem I see out here. Of course, but there's ways we have an opportunity to do something to try to slow down traffic. But also remove the bottleneck. It's more between Vinci Road and I mean, well, that road is so much different. That's probably more concerned with morning traffic than it is even evening. But this whole when people are following this whole area down here, it's like they think they're going to make it up. And they go flat down there. Especially with where's that new student housing in here? Road. So where are they gonna, this is Jacobs.
Yep, they come out here and.
Are they gonna bring them up here, all the way?
Yep. Yeah, they're gonna have to come all the way over here.
So they are gonna develop in the road and not this, they're not gonna try to make an entrance.
They talked about.
Right here's the shopping center.
Yeah, lining up with the shopping center signal. They talked about it.
So they're gonna come back up here.
But this idea of having some way for them as pedestrians or bicyclists, is that still being talked about at all?
They need to build a pedestrian bridge over here.
Yeah.
No, under the railroad. Yeah, you could actually cross that line. But, they can go under. Yeah, they don't mind them going, they don't mind them coming with it. Railroad was gonna let them go in the vehicle. As long as they pay. Yeah. So they did the same kind of thing. Somebody would have to pay for it. Railroad. Let's go and huddle it up and try to get big ideas, and if anybody wants to stay and.
Okay.
Call it.
money were no object, and Oconee County had all of the staff resources in the world, and time was no variable. And what is your one big idea for Highway 123?
Flying cars. Don't have to worry about that.
Yes.
Well, there's some type of.
Okay. Some rail transit, great idea.
In the medium, even, that's contrary to.
Got enough trouble with crossing it, it's gonna be flying cars.
Okay.
Other big
Others?
ideas? Don't be shy. That's what that. Oh, yes, elevated bypass. Did you hear what he had to say? No. What was, did you have that idea?
She wrote mine down.
Oh, but I might have missed another one. Oh, good, okay.
By the way,
The elevated bypass, yes.
Yes, right over top of Clinton.
1962, they had a meeting downtown Seneca talking about traffic problems. And I got up and told them, I said, when you don't have traffic problems, that's when you have problems. And today, with the downtown area, they wish they'd listen. They fuss about traffic problems. So we got traffic problems, we're growing.
Yes, definitely.
I would probably say catwalks across 123 for foot and bike traffic.
Yeah, good idea. Pedestrian bridges?
Mm-hmm.
Bike paths, basically all the way, which would solve the walking for bus stop.
Yeah.
Yep.
As well.
How you doing?
Okay, great. Did you get that one, Colleen? Prohibit left turns except at lights. Yeah, okay. That's true.
Other ideas?
I'm telling you, because it's completely different.
Yeah.
I can make it to work in 45 minutes when the kids are out of school. After that, when they're there, it's 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And it all starts at English.
And we'll always go off of the actual counts and not relying on what we happen to see, so.
Yeah, but unless you're there, unless you actually see it, you have no clue. Counts don't matter.
outside the Mexican restaurant, Waffle House, all that whole area is gonna be built. There's gonna be that much more traffic
Kiwi
coming.
Trail.
Yeah,
Kiwi Trail.
coming back into this corridor, which is gonna affect that. It's already backing up now, so.
Yes. All right, other big ideas before we let you all go?
Just developing the shallow road into a bypass around Clemson.
Okay.
I mean, that's,
You already Shiloh Road, when they put in, High Point.
no, I'm talking about going out, taking shallow road and going and extending it into Cherry Road and back around to 76. By the pier.
But you gotta get to
By-
Shiloh Road, you gotta go past the pier, that's the catchment, that is a.
You've been by the pier when students are getting out, going in the morning, you're taking your right to zero. It is bad.
I mean, we talked about that.
Do not stop.
And then one of them might be running, so they're wanting exercise on the road.
It's just less crowded than the Clemson corridor.
That's where water.
Thank everybody for coming and say, Mr. Chairman. I'm afraid I'm not gonna come. No worries. That's what I'm here for.
Four-lane Cherry Road, four-lane Shallow Road.
All right, I think we'll turn it back over to the commission here. Thank you all so much for engaging with us and writing all of your ideas. This is a lot of fodder for us to do, so thank you.
It's all right, no worry, no worry.
Ready? Do I have any old business? Do I have any new business? Do I hear a motion to adjourn? All in favor, say aye. Adjourn.
Everyone, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it.